What's up, everybody? Joe Marino here from Locked On Bills, joined by Travis Rodgers of Locked On Rams. We're here to get you ready for tonight's NFL season opener between the Buffalo Bills and the Los Angeles Rams. Today's episode of Locked On Bills and Locked On Rams is presented by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. You pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. Folks, this is a highly anticipated matchup. Everybody's going to be watching as the Rams begin their defense of the Super Bowl championship against the Buffalo Bills, the team that is currently the favorite to win the Lombardi in 2022. Travis, we got a lot to talk about. Welcome. I am excited for this matchup.
Yeah, Joe, I can't wait. It's been a long time. It's been quite an offseason covering the Rams and being around them and enjoying the Super Bowl kind of fog that comes along with what they went through last year. But we got one more thing to get through. You got the opening ceremony, you got the drop of the banner, and then really, quite frankly, none of it matters anymore. We're on to the next season, and I know that's where the Rams are focused.
So as we do get to that point, now the ball's going to be kicked, the banner's hung, everyone's watching. What's that prevailing thought on the Rams side of things? What's the biggest storyline for Los Angeles entering this game, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it's the storyline that goes all the way back to OTAs for the Rams, and that is Matthew Stafford's elbow. We just don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know how healthy he is, how healthy he may not be. This is something that Sean McVay has said that he's entirely comfortable with, that he knows that Matthew Stafford is going to be able to make all the throws that they need him to make, that he expects him to be, fully operational by the time that they take on the Bills on Thursday night. But I don't know about you, Joe, but for me, I'd like to see it. And I know that he wasn't going to play in the preseason. Sean McVay doesn't play his guys in the preseason, but he was fairly limited in camp. He would do some throwing some days. He would not do throwing on other days. I think that it was kind of an interesting preseason for the Rams because they had a little bit of a quarterback competition for QB number 2, which usually you hope you never have to use. But coming into this season with the Rams and Matthew Stafford's elbow, that's kind of the story of the offseason. And they went out and did what they typically do. They don't draft anybody in the first couple of rounds. They spent a whole bunch of money on some of their own players. They went out and got Bobby Wagner, go out and get Allen Robinson. But yeah, I think everybody's very excited to get them going and see exactly what the defending Super Bowl champions look like, because they're mostly the same, but different in some very important parts.
Travis, as somebody who's observed this story from the outside looking in, I've wondered to myself, like, how big of a deal is this? Because I feel like with Matt, I mean, he's been durable, right? Like, but he's also had injuries. It dates back to like his second season. There's been back stuff. And I don't know, I kind of feel numb to it. Like, he always plays through it. He's always productive. And I don't know, like, I feel like they signed him to this big contract extension, well aware of his health. And like, I feel like it's a story, but it's kind of not to me. But also, if it is a story, probably not week one, right? This is something we would be interested in maybe later in the season popping up and being an issue.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it doesn't pop up at all. But I kind of look at it a little differently, Joe, in the sense that if he is already having to manage it, having an entire offseason, having an entire down cycle of being able to, whether it's with surgery or whether it's with treatment or PT or whatever it is, that theoretically this will be as healthy as he could possibly be. And that he's still having to be managed is concerning to me, because at some point the throwing load is going to have to be ramped up. I know that they'll manage it during the week, but if he's not, Mike Martz mentioned this a couple of months ago when he was talking about the Rams, that is the thing, that if he's not healthy right now, I don't know if he ever will be. There were some whispers, nothing ever official, that when he really struggled through the month of November last year, he had 3 consecutive games with a pick 6. It was the first 3-game losing streak of Sean McVay's career. And the Rams just really did not look like a particularly dangerous football team. It was because that elbow was giving him problems. He obviously got it squared away, but we'll see. Hopefully he goes out there and he looks great. Hopefully he goes out there and he can make the throws that he needs to make. But this is everybody's worst nightmare, right? Where if you are a Super Bowl caliber team like Buffalo is, like the Rams are, if all of a sudden your quarterback isn't right, that changes everything almost instantly.
Well, and I'm guessing acclimating to a new weapon in Allen Robinson, you wonder if there's been enough reps there. Obviously, Van Jefferson not probably not going to play. Kind of
Mhm.
who's that third receiver? I'm sure there's a timing component, especially with a couple of new offensive linemen up front, that is weighing on the minds of what this team can look like. So I appreciate your insight there, because it certainly brought it to more of a bigger deal in my mind than I had previously anticipated. Travis, when I think about this game from the Bills side of things,
Sure.
it really comes down to this being the first exposure that we have to the 2022 Buffalo Bills. And while that seems like a very basic talking point, the reality is this team has high expectations.
Sure.
This is a team that should be on a mission. They've been close. The Rams have what the Bills want. And we get a chance to see the Super Bowl favorite, the Bills, in a great measuring stick opportunity in week 1 against the Rams on the road. And while the expectations are high this year, they were high last year. Josh Allen coming out of 2020, number 2 in the NFL MVP voting. This team had high expectations last year, and they fell flat in week 1. They fell to a bad Pittsburgh Steelers team, and especially offensively, they just weren't there. And defensively they were there, but offensively they had some issues early in the season. And I'm curious, what lessons did the Bills learn last year when you stunk it up against Pittsburgh, when you had a clunker game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, things that kept you from having that number 1 seed, and instead of going having the Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs come play that game at your place, you have to go there again. And that's a tough place to play any time of year, let alone the playoffs. And so I'm interested in seeing what this team has learned. How have they applied the lessons of what they've been through over the last several seasons, which includes 2 overtime playoff losses, the Houston game 3 years ago, and of course last year against the Chiefs, and then sandwiched in between, you had an AFC championship game lost. They've paid their dues. Can they put it all together? And of course, is Von Miller the missing link for Buffalo? I think we're going to get some good clues against the Rams on Thursday night.
Yeah, it should be a fantastic game. And you mentioned it. I'm curious to see how the Bills wear that favorite crown, right? You don't get anything, but there is expectations that come along with it. There are, the proverbial target on your back going into it. It's one thing to kind of sneak up on people, and not that the Bills have snuck up on anybody over the last couple of years. They've been a really good team, but when you are not the Chiefs, when you are not the Rams, when you're not the Tampa Bay Bucks, or you're the Green Bay Packers with Aaron Rodgers, there's something about wearing that weight that comes along with it that I'm anxious to see how Buffalo looks, knowing that everybody thinks, okay, you might be the best team in a very, very deep AFC, but now you got to go do it.
Yeah, that's it. No paper champions here. We're going to find out soon enough here. Turo is the world's largest car sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the U.S., Canada, and the U.K. You can book a spacious SUV or minivan for a family road trip. You can get a classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, or holiday. You can even find an affordable economy car if you're on a budget and just need to get from point A to point B. Test drive that new electric vehicle you've had your eye on to see how it fits in your everyday life. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Ditch boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. So, Travis, as we transition away from some of those big picture storylines entering this game, I want to focus in on the key matchups, the big matchups in this game that can win the game for each team. And so as we dive into that subject matter, what's the prevailing matchup on your mind?
Well, the one that I think is going to have the most attention for me, at least, is the corner opposite of Jalen Ramsey, right? That the Rams had Darius Williams the last couple of seasons, who played really well. He played well enough to get a nice contract from somewhere that wasn't the Rams, so he's down the road. And it left the Rams in an interesting situation, because what they've been able to do for the last few years with Jalen Ramsey is basically just say, okay, you're not going to this side of the field. He just kind of drops a curtain and takes care of, sometimes it's the team's best player, because he doesn't just play one side. He'll move around and he'll do some different things. He'll go, when they needed him against the Niners, he played George Kittle in the slot a little bit. So he's a very versatile player, but Troy Hill is their number 2 quarterback or corner. So he's got some experience. He's coming back to the Rams. I'm interested to see how he matches up. But more importantly is, who is that third corner? Is it Kobe Durant, who is a late round pick? Is it Darian Kendrick, who was a late round pick? Is it somebody like Robert Rochelle, who's been with the team for the second year, who actually played pretty well in relatively limited time for them last year? But These are all very inexperienced guys. And what makes the Rams go, as much as we talk about Aaron Donald and Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp and all the big names on this team, OBJ last year, Von Miller, of the all pros that are all over the place, what allows them to spend all the money to go get these guys is that their 6th and 7th round guys can carry water, that those guys can be put on an NFL field with very little experience and hold their own. That's what I'm looking for. You're going up against a very good offensive team, a very good quarterback, a very experienced team, a team with big expectations, solo game. They're going to be looking for those guys. They're going to break the huddle and come out and say, where's Durant? Where's Kendrick? Where's Rochelle? They're not going to be looking for Jalen Ramsey. They're not going to be looking for necessarily for some of these other guys. They're going to be looking for the kids. And that's where my eyes are going to go first, because I think that's the soft spot of this defense. I think that's where, if I were Buffalo or any of the teams that the Rams are going to play this year, that's where I'd be looking to attack.
Travis, you talked about Rams corners. I think I have to talk about Bills corners. And obviously, Tre'Davious White, their number 1 star cornerback, he's on the PUP list. He won't play in this game. He won't play for several weeks. And that really leaves the Bills in a unique position. Dane Jackson, your number 1 corner. Well, a lot of people might not know who that is. A couple years ago, he was a 7th round draft pick out of Pittsburgh. He played a little bit as a rookie. And then last year, filling in for Trey White after Thanksgiving when he went down, he got a lot of valuable playing time, but I think we're still learning about who Dane Jackson is as a player. And then you think about what's opposite of him. The Bills are going to platoon 2 rookies, their 1st round pick, Kyer Elam out of Florida, and their 6th round pick, Christian Benford out of Villanova. And they're going to platoon them and kind of see which one fits in best with the group and let the game kind of evolve and go from there. And so, that's definitely something that's of concern when you have a guy like Cooper Kupp, who, as we know, what do you have, 2,200 yards last year, including the playoffs? Just insane production. He was the Triple Crown winner. That's rare. And of course, Allen Robinson, who's a big physical receiver that, last year wasn't great for him. The dynamics in Chicago were what they were, but we know what Allen Robinson's capable of doing in the NFL. And so I know there's some questions about who that 3rd guy is going to be at receiver for the Rams, but there's a lot of questions about how this Bills cornerback room is going to play together. Now, where you get some hope from the Bills side of things is the rest of the back 7 is really, really strong. You got a great slot corner in Taron Johnson, Matt Milano and Tremaine Edmonds at linebacker are really good coverage linebackers. And then, of course, Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, a couple of all-pro safeties. You like how they can space the field and really challenge the leverage that the Rams want to play, but you do have a lot of inexperience at corner against a top-tier quarterback and really dynamic wide receivers.
Yeah, it's and because both of these teams, I think, are going to look at this similarly. You have some inexperienced pockets in that secondary, and you have 2 very experienced NFL quarterbacks and 2 very, in Sean McVay's case, at least, somebody that makes his bones on finding opportunities there, and they're going to attack those guys. They're going to find those guys, and it's up to the coordinators on both sides, defensive coordinators, to, I don't know if mask it is the best word, because at some point you got to play, you're going to have to make some plays, but at least put them in some situations that maybe leave them a little bit of help on one side or another. But I wouldn't be surprised if both quarterbacks are coming to that huddle looking for the guy with the green and just, okay, let's see what this guy got. This is not college football anymore. And, for the Rams in particular, a guy like Kobe Durant comes from a small school, that this is a brand new thing for some of these guys. So Darian Kendrick, a little bit less, coming from Georgia, because, he's played in front of 100,000 people, probably more than most NFL players have. So he might be, the bright lights might not be a big deal for him, but can they keep up? That's a big question.
Travis, I wanted to ask you about the Rams' offensive line. Obviously, losing Austin Corbett, losing Andrew Whitworth. We know Joe Noteboom's going to step in there at left tackle. I guess, is it right guard? Is it going to be Coleman Shelton? Is it going to be Bobby Evans? What are your thoughts on these guys stepping in? I know the other 3 guys in Allen, in Havenstein, and Edwards are rock solid players, but those 2 new pieces for this offensive line against a really deep Bills defensive line.
Yeah, I think the guard is the more interesting part, because Coleman Shelton was their number 1 depth piece last year. He could play both guard positions. He was the number 1 backup center. So all of a sudden, you take your depth at 3 positions, and now that's gone because he's in your starting lineup. Logan Bruss, who was the Rams' first pick in the 3rd round, he got hurt in the preseason. He's going to miss the entire year. So there's a depth piece that's gone. So now you're really, really thin. Andrew Whitworth was a very, very good left tackle for the Rams last year, and I'm not dismissing his ability to play at all. I think the bigger challenge, though, is replacing the leadership that he brought to that group, because he'd been around for so long, because he was everybody's big brother or dad or uncle or however you want to say it. He was the guy that got everybody on the same page, that told everybody how it was going to go. He was the voice in the room that everybody was listening to. So who does that now? Maybe it's Rob Havenstein. It seems he's been the guy that's been there the longest. I talked to him a little bit in training camp. He seems comfortable in that role, but sometimes that role fits and sometimes it doesn't. And until you put it on, you're not really quite sure. Joe Noteboom's a good football player. He played a lot for the Rams last year, and you never noticed that Whitworth was gone because the left tackle was getting his butt kicked. It wasn't that. He's going to be more than up for the job in that regard. The question is, if one of those guys goes down, who's up next? Like you mentioned, Bobby Evans is probably the next guy that comes in there. He did not look good in the exhibition season. That Sean McVay played him in the exhibition season probably tells you what he thinks about where he fits into the hierarchy of the Rams. They drafted another offensive lineman, A.J. Arcuri out of Michigan State, who they cut and they've brought back subsequently. But they do not have a ton of depth on that offensive line. I think it's really good. And then the last thing that I'll say, Joe, about Coleman Shelton is Austin Corbett, who was the right guard last year, really kind of found a home with the Rams and was, for lack of a better word, the people that I talked to inside the organization, he was their nasty. He was the guy that was comfortable getting in a fight. He was the guy that would start a fight. He's the guy that was 100% happy getting and doing all the little nasty things that happen down there. If he's gone, who's going to do it now? Because the second guy on that list was probably Andrew Whitworth. Now they're both gone. So when it comes time to get nasty, and offensive lines have to get nasty, who are the guys that are going to do that? We're going to have to find out, because I don't know the answer right now.
Well, speaking of not knowing answers, the Rams have this guy, I think he wears 99, pretty good player there on the D-line, Aaron Donald. Travis, you're going to talk about him every week, these crossover episodes that we're going to be giving, because obviously that's been a big topic of conversation on the Bills side of things. You got a legit game record there in Aaron Donald, and if I had the answer on how to stop him, I'm not sure I'm sitting here talking to you, and I don't think the NFL has the answer, because he wouldn't be wrecking teams like he has. It's funny. I went to the O-line Mastermind Summit in Dallas this past year, and I almost wanted to call it the "How the hell are we going to block Aaron Donald Summit?" Because that was the name, man. You had 300, 400 offensive line. I think it might have been 500, to be honest with you. 500 offensive linemen just getting together, saying, "What are we going to do?" You know what I mean? This is a big task that everybody's thinking about, and obviously the Bills specifically this week, this is their problem. And when I survey the Bills' options for handling him, if I had to take any level of comfort, if that even makes sense, I like that Rodgers Saffold's one of the Bills' guards. They were teammates together for 5 years with the Rams. Mitch Morrison, Ryan Bates is the center and right guard. You have a lot of athleticism there. Not that Aaron Donald can't out-athlete every single player that's ever going to try to block him, but you like that you do have some movement skills. And then, of course, Aaron Kromer, who coached for 3 years with, of course, the Rams offensive line, but against Aaron Donald. You think there's some level of familiarity. I don't think that it matters all that much. I mean, Aaron Kromer's not blocking anybody, but if the Bills are going to have any chance there, you like that there might be some intel, and certainly it's going to be interesting to see what type of plan they come up with, because in the past, and I say this in the past, and this is relevant because the Bills have a new offensive line coach this year in Aaron Kromer, and a new offensive coordinator in Ken Dorsey. He's not really new. He was the quarterbacks coach for Josh Allen the last 3 years. He was the guy that Josh wanted to replace Brian Daboll, who's now the coach of the Giants. But I never felt like the combination of Daboll and Bobby Johnson, the former offensive line coach, did enough to respect those top tier defensive linemen. It was always, okay, we're just going to play our game and not make any adjustments. And I'm interested to see if that changes. Are they willing to commit some extra bodies to Aaron Donald? And with no disrespect to the Rams, I don't know that they have a whole lot of depth otherwise. I know they have some stout players in a Greg Gaines and an A'Shawn Robinson. Leonard Floyd's certainly a speedy guy, but do they have? They don't have the Von Miller piece, right? That other piece that's going to force you to cause a lot of attention away from Aaron Donald. So I'm really interested to see from a Bills perspective how they choose to match up here, because I think they do maybe have an opportunity to commit a little extra help to AD.
Well, I think you're spot on, Joe, because the team, you said it really well. You don't stop Aaron Donald. It's just a matter of how much does he make you go away from what you'd like to do to prevent him from ruining your day.
Yeah.
right? That it's if I can handle him sometimes with one guy, great. If I can handle him most of the time with two guys, that's great. But when all of a sudden I got to have that third guy involved in this, when all of a sudden I got to shift protections, when all of a sudden I need to make sure that because he's blowing up every single play, now everything else that I'm trying to get done is suffering because of it. I think to your point about the Rodgers Stafford and the coaching staff that are familiar with him, I don't know if there's a plan to stop him, but you probably know what he likes the least. You
Mhm.
probably know what he does worse is the wrong word because I don't think he has a lot of worse in him, but
Sure.
what maybe he's less great at than some other things and try to force him into situations to do that. And the other thing, the one time when Aaron Donald does seem to be something other than the greatest defensive player the league has ever seen is when he has to play both ways, when he has to defend the run and the pass. Because if you get in a situation where he knows what's coming, it's a wrap. That's it. If he only has to play one way, there is no way to defend him because he's, to your point, he's faster, he's stronger, he's got better technique, and he is highly motivated on every single snap, which is a very dangerous combination for who's ever trying to stop him. But if you can make him have to at least take that half a beat to make sure if it's a run or a pass, that seems to be when you can turn him into more of a mortal defensive tackle, which doesn't happen very often.
Let's transition into some predictions here, Travis, and obviously an interesting matchup. We've talked a lot about it to this point, and I somewhat think it's crazy that the Bills are 2.5-point favorites on the road. I'm sure that that's something that Sean McVay has well communicated to his Super Bowl champion teams that, hey, you're at home. And this team's coming across the country, and they're favored to beat you by nearly a field goal. That's really interesting to me. I know Vegas is really in on Buffalo, and I wonder how much of that is just kind of driving money, right? Like we talk about favorites and odds. Let's be honest, it's really about what's going to drive money. And I think that plays into it quite a bit. I mean, the Bills have certainly earned a lot of respect, but to be a 2.5-point favorite on the road in this scenario is interesting to me nonetheless. I've given you the opportunity to go first on the first couple of talking points. So I guess I'll go ahead and share my thoughts on the result of this game. And again, I have a lot of respect for Sean McVay and the Rams. If anyone listened to my Tuesday podcast, I think you would understand just the amount of real respect that I do have for Los Angeles. This is what I'll say from the Bills side of things. I think they catch him at a good time. I really do. There's a lot of newness with this Rams football team. We talked about a couple of new pieces on the offensive line, Corbett and Whitworth. You really kind of did a good job of talking even more about how much they mattered to the football team. Obviously Odell Beckham's not part of this group. Van Jefferson's not going to play. Von Miller's not there. Eric Weddle, who played 100% of the snaps in the Super Bowl, he's not around. Some rotational players like a Sebastian Joseph Day and Agbanya Okoronkwo, they're not
Darius
around.
Williams too, who was when you're opposite Jalen Ramsey, you don't get a ton of love, but he was a really good player for the Rams for a few seasons.
I think Bobby Wagner's definitely going to be an upgrade to Troy Reeder, but Troy Reeder started a lot of games, played a lot of football. Mm-hmm. Bobby Wagner, new first game in the system. I think you catch him at a good time. I do. Now, the Bills have to go out there and meet the moment, and the Rams are more than capable of winning this football game. But as I try to find the X factors into, what's going to play into this result, I think it's the newness that the Rams have to incorporate. And while Los Angeles certainly has the premier talent, right? Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Matthew Stafford, we know about those players. The Bills have a more complete and balanced roster that has a lot of continuity together. So I'm clinging to those things, and I'm predicting a Bills win 31-24.
Yeah, I'd like where your head's at on this. A couple of things that I would say I'd go in a slightly different direction. My co-host on the Rams pregame and postgame show is Kirk Morrison, who played in the NFL, played in Buffalo for a period of time, as a matter of fact.
Highly respected,
and he told the story of the first game that he ever played in the NFL. He gets drafted at San Diego State by the Raiders, and the Raiders open the season in this game. The defending Super Bowl champs, dropping the banner, the whole thing. It's his rookie opening act of his rookie season in New England against Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. And the show starts, and it's fireworks, and it is Ozzy Osbourne as it goes, which will be playing halftime at the SoFi this Thursday. And he said that the game was over before it even started. He said that the emotion and the the reliving of it all again was just this unbelievable boost to the Patriots. Now that was Bill Belichick and Tom Brady in New England and all those things. That being said, I do think that there's going to be an incredibly emotional high for the Rams coming into this. I think that Super Bowl fog that I think most Rams fans are curious about, I don't know if it's going to be there on opening night. I think that they're going to be fully present and ready to go. The other thing that I think is really interesting is Sean McVay is really good out of the gate. He's really, really good out of the gate. That when the Rams struggle, and to be, just perfectly blunt about it, they really haven't struggled very often under Sean McVay. They've had little dips here and there, but they tend to come in the middle of seasons. They tend to come somewhere between weeks 8, 9, 10, 12, somewhere in there in the middle. He's really good at the beginning. He's really good at the end. They've done an incredible job of stacking wins early in years since he's coming in. And I do think, and I'm maybe a little sensitive to this, I do think there is a sense, and that the Rams were very, very fortunate to win the Super Bowl. And they were. A lot of things broke their way. They nearly blew a 27-3 lead to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They nearly lost in the NFC Championship game. If Jaquiski Tartt catches that interception, they probably do lose. They were behind late in the fourth quarter in the Super Bowl in their own backyard, and all their receivers were down except Cooper Kupp. He kept getting. So a lot of things had to break their way. The conventional wisdom to me, as I listen to Rams players talk, is, we were pretty good too. We just didn't catch some breaks. That we have a lot of good players, an unbelievable coaching staff, and I think that they've got something to prove. Aaron Donald is not someone who I think went on the rubber chicken circuit and just is enjoying the second half of his NBA or NFL career. I think he's fully ready to go. And Sean McVay, and I use this as a term of endearment, he's a crazy person. He is somebody that is going to be fully ready to say, okay, I'm not just a guy that won the Super Bowl. I am Bill Walsh. I am Chuck Noll. I am Tom Landry. I am Joe Gibbs. I am one of these guys that does this a lot. I don't do this once. I didn't get there and win one of these and ride off into the sunset. He's still the youngest coach in the NFL. He's been to Super Bowl twice. He's won one. He's still the youngest coach in the league. So I think he's got some stuff to prove. I think it's going to be very close. Like you said, I wouldn't be surprised if Buffalo won the game. But I think that the Rams have a little something extra. I think they'll take a little bit of that home field advantage is there. And I will give them the nod in a very, very close game. I'll say 31-28.
One thing that I'll say here, and not to diminish the importance of this game, right? This is a big deal. It's week 1. It's a measuring stick. And we're going to talk about this game for several days, right? The rest of the league doesn't play till Sunday. This is going to be the talk of the NFL world. And maybe people are going to hate me for saying this. This is not the most important game of the season to either of these teams. This is a non-conference game. The Bills after this game have 5 straight AFC opponents. That includes the Chiefs, the Dolphins, the Ravens, the Steelers. I mean, the Titans, who were the number 1 seed last year. If you were to pick one of those first 6 to lose, this is the one. And so while it's important, it's really important, it's not the most important game of the season.
I couldn't agree more. This is a sexy game. It's it's the opening act. It is 2 teams that look, you and I could be doing this leading up to the Super Bowl, and I don't think either one of us would be super surprised that the last game of the season is the same as the first game of the season. But both Buffalo and the Rams, they're going to lose a few games here and there. Yeah. That this is the NFL. All the teams, even the bad teams, are pretty good, and even the really good teams have bad days. Somebody could win this game by 2 touchdowns. Whoever's on the wrong side of it, it doesn't mean their season's over. Who's ever on the right side of it doesn't mean that they walk into the conference championship game. It's the first game in a very long season. A really appealing one. Should be very, very exciting. But I couldn't agree with you more that whoever doesn't win is still in really good shape to be one of the best teams in their conference.
Selfishly, I want to take 1 second here and specifically reiterate what you talked about there with the Rams in their quest to win the Super Bowl, and how there's just some things have to break the right way. Sure. And I say that for Bills Mafia, because I think there's a lot of Bills fans right now that are living in a world that this is Super Bowl or bust. And I maintain, Travis, that no team in the history of the NFL has ever been in a Super Bowl or bust season, because you can't live in a world where only one team has a successful season. It's the one that wins the Super Bowl, and 31 of the teams didn't achieve anything that year. It does take some things to go your way. And I'm not taking anything away from the Rams. I am echoing this to reiterate to Bills Mafia that, hey, you can have everything that it takes but it's still, there's some things along the way. I think every Super Bowl champion has had some things along the way that needed to go their way for them to end up as the champions.
No question. No, I mean, the Rams had 5 or 6 or 10 of them last year. You need some stuff to go right. You need to get a good schedule. You need to stay relatively injury free. You need to get a call. Like the first time the Rams went to the Super Bowl 4 years, Super Bowl 53, they went there because one of the worst calls in NFL history happened, and they were on the right side of it. It's just you need. I don't like the word lucky. I like the word fortunate. You need to be fortunate to catch a couple of those breaks. That goes for every last one of the 32 teams.
Well, this has been a phenomenal conversation, Travis. I appreciate you you hopping on here and helping us get everyone ready for a game that everyone is anticipating. And of course, the next time that the listeners of Locked On Rams and Locked On Bills hear from us, it will be the recap to what happened. And so someone's going to be 1-0, someone's going to be 0-1. But guess what? They're going to play 16 more games.
16 more after that.
So, and they all count for one. So
That's right.
Looking forward to it. Everyone stay healthy. Enjoy the game, Travis. And thanks for sharing the mic with me today.
Enjoyed it, Joe.